Hello, Facebook friends. Time for a little mitzvah moment. You know, each and every day we're supposed to study some Rambam, and if you learn, if you learn the book of Mishnah Torah in the course of 339 days, you actually finish the entirety of Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral tradition, the oral Torah. And this was a program that was put in place by the Rabbi, and some of you have seen some of my videos, they're on Chabad.org. 339 classes on the book of mitzvahs, because the book of mitzvahs can be studied corresponding to the halachot, to the laws, which are articulated in the Rambam's magnum opus, which is called Mishnah Torah. So I wanted to take this opportunity to speak to you live this evening and to share something about today's mitzvah, because it's really interesting that today's mitzvah happens to coincide with our matching marathon. There are 613 mitzvahs in the Torah, and there are some times that we study one mitzvah for, I don't know, sometimes as long as a week or even 10 days. And there are sometimes we pack as many as 19 mitzvahs into one day. It depends on the halachas that they go. Right now we're learning a series of halachot, which is called, it's about Machzit HaShekel. And it spans today, 3 chapters of it today, 1 chapter tomorrow, and tonight, which is tomorrow, we begin to learn the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh, the laws of the heavenly movements, the bodies in heaven as they orbit, the lunar orbit, and we talk about the mitzvah of sanctifying time. So first let me tell you what the mitzvah is, because it's always good for us to study some Torah together. So the mitzvah is that every single Jew is supposed to give a half a shekel, which is a denomination that was in use. Now this denomination kind of waxed and waned over the years, but the Rambam tells us that there's a minimum denomination. It's got to be at least the minimum of the half shekel which the Jewish people gave at the time when we were in the desert, in the Midbar, and this mitzvah was given to us. And basically, how do you evaluate the denomination, right? So the Rambam tells us that there was the currency at the time, the shekel HaKodesh, was 320 barley corns of silver. It was like a method they used to measure. Barley corns are all the same size. So 320 barley corns. At some point during the Second Temple, the currency went up to 384 barley corns of silver. I guess you called it inflation. But at any rate, it never went, the half shekel was never allowed to dip lower than the half shekel in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. And this half shekel was something that was given by everybody, ubiquitously. Everybody had to give a half shekel. Ha'ashir lo yarbe, the rich man doesn't give more. Hadal, the poor man, lo yamit, doesn't give less. And here's the interesting thing. There's no payment plans. The half shekel has to be given in its entirety, and ideally in a single coin. Although, b'diavad, if you give it, if you gave it with a collection of coins that would add up to it, you could still fulfill the mitzvah. But the half shekel has to be given in its entirety. And the obvious question is why? So listen to this. Many think that the reason of the whole giving of the half shekel is because with that giving, the korbanot, the daily offerings that were brought on behalf of all the Jewish people, they were brought in the Beit HaMikdash. And how were they paid for? From the communal coffers. From the communal coffers that represented the entire bandwidth of the Jewish people, all contributing equal parts. So nobody had more and nobody had less. In other words, this was a communal effort. And in the book of Torah education, Sefer HaChinuch, it seems to indicate that that's the idea of this mitzvah, that everybody gives a half shekel, and that half shekel then becomes the opportunity for the korbanot to be brought on behalf of the Jewish people. So why can't you have a payment plan? Like, what's wrong if the poor person said, I give you some this week, I give you some next week, as long as I can get it before the start date, which is Nisan, the summer, the spring, that's when this new season begins. As long as I get it to you, like, why do I have to give it at once? So the Rebbe points out that the Rambam, Maimonides, doesn't mention the business of how the money is spent until the 4th chapter. That's like tonight, tomorrow's Rambam. The first 3 chapters talk about the half shekel. Now, if the half shekel, or the purpose of the half shekel, was a part of the mitzvah, how the money is going to be spent, then that should have been mentioned right at the outset. Even more compellingly, in the book of mitzvahs, which we're studying, there's no mention whatsoever of how the half shekel is spent. Rather, it says you have to give a half shekel, and it serves as kofer nafsho. It serves as an atonement. So the Rebbe suggests something phenomenal. He says the truth is that the fact that we spend a half shekel on the korbanot is secondary. That's not the primary issue. The primary issue is that every single Jew at a certain point gathers together and communally we give a half shekel, and that serves as an atonement, and it becomes like a korban of sorts. You know, when it comes to a korban, when it comes to an offering, one of the basic halachot is that it has to be intact, perfect. You can't give something blemished or broken or like halfway. You can't do that. A korban has to be whole. And because the korban has to be whole, that's why it makes perfect sense that the half shekel has to be given at once rather than paid out or using some kind of payment plan. You see, the idea is that it's not so important how the money is spent, but rather how the money is given. Every one of us has had to participate. And the Beit HaMikdash was a unifying force. So the Beit HaMikdash, being involved in the Beit HaMikdash, giving this half shekel in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, it united all of us. It united all of us in a common giving. And this common giving brought Hashem's blessing for us. It served as an atonement. So that's like the mitzvah for today. And I did not know what the mitzvah for today was going to be when we planned this matchathon, but how incredible. How incredible that this is the one time a year when we're reaching out to the entire community. I'm really not focused on the people who are members of our show or the people who contribute often. I'm talking about the people who are united by our common Torah study. And I know that there are thousands of them out there. Thousands of you are united by the Torah we studied together. And I'm hoping that there's even hundreds of you watching right now. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Please join together with everybody. I'm asking you not to be part of this mitzvah moment, but the mitzvah moment should lead us into a mitzvah matchathon. We can do this. We need to do it. I'm committed to trying to teach Torah as often as possible to as many people as possible. I really put a lot of time into it, and for better or for worse, the fundraising responsibility falls upon me as well. And it's really hard to prepare shiurim. It's really hard to dedicate myself to this teaching of Torah that I love so much and that so many of you appreciate. If I have to worry how we're paying the electric bills, and I have to worry about how I deal with the bank next week. But everything can change. If you participate, if everybody participates, this is going to be a communal effort. We're all just going to come together, and our matches are standing by. No, it's not a half a shekel. Please give what you can. If you can afford $18, I thank you for it. If you can afford $50, I thank you for it. If you can afford $1,000, please don't fall short. Please give what you can. Participate in the incredible activities that are going on here. Be a part of our communal, really our global Torah study. And in doing so, we will surely bring forth favor from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because you know what's happening? We're having a wave of united tzedakah, of people doing something holy and beautiful and committing themselves to supporting Yiddishkeit and the growth and development of Torah and Torah study around the world, and we're all doing it together. And it's just around the time that we're learning about Machzah Shekel. And the interesting thing is that I noticed on Facebook, and I posted it before, that tonight it's the longest night of the year, and there's going to be a winter solstice or a lunar eclipse. They call it a high sky lunar eclipse. It's actually the longest lunar eclipse. It's gonna be visible when the moon kind of almost blacks out. It'll be a deep red. You have to be up, I think, at 2 o'clock in the morning in our time to see this. But it's going to be a very dark night, and the moon and the heavenly bodies and the movements of heavenly bodies that's kind of what's going on tonight. And amazingly, tonight, which is tomorrow in Yiddishkeit, is when we start to learn the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh. And so, as I posted before, here's my thought: if it's the darkest night of the year, materially, physically, let's make it the brightest night of the year spiritually. And we manufacture light through acts of loving kindness. When we contribute, when we give of ourselves, when we give of our time, when we give of our treasure, when we give of things that are precious to us. And I know the time is precious, and the time that you give to study Torah is a beautiful thing. And treasures are precious. People value their money. And that's human nature, and that's understandable. And that's what makes tzedakah so incredible. When you take the time and make the effort to share of your treasure, to enable the beauty of Torah to continue to develop and to ensure that the darkness starts to dissipate, kind of dent this darkness. And in Mirza Hashem, hopefully, very speedily and in our time, to see the sunrise, to see the kind of Mashiach, to see the light spill and wash the entire universe in its glow. This is going to happen. And it happens because of the mitzvahs we do, the Torah we study, the davening we're involved in, and more than anything, it happens because of tzedakah. As it's written, Gedola tzedakah. Tzedakah is really great. Shemekarevet et hageula. It hastens, it accelerates the process of redemption. It brings the coming of Mashiach quicker, closer, faster. And here we are talking about giving tzedakah. And here we are talking about doing this in a united fashion. We say, Barcheinu Avinu, we ask Hashem for His blessing, Kulanu Ke'echad, and we're doing something together. When you give tzedakah, tonight, you're bringing light into the world. Because you're causing two other people to give tzedakah at the same time. And together, Mirza Hashem, we're making a brighter world. So thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And please, www.chabadflamingo.com/donate. That's chabadflamingo.com/donate. Please be a part of this. Please be a partner in ensuring that our teaching of Torah, our study of Torah, our unity around the Torah can continue to unfold with increasing vigor. I thank you in advance. May Hashem bless each and every one of you for your efforts, for your kindness, and for your generosity. And Bezrat Hashem, I'll be back in a little less than 2 hours for a phenomenal class, I hope, with Hashem's help, about the dreams of Yosef and what they might mean for us today.